opponents. Anyways, what's up guys? Last week I made a video on how to stop being predictable. Now, this video is kind of like the counter to that, and it's about observing and reading your opponent. I also made a video on how to adapt that a lot of people seem to have enjoyed, and it kind of skimmed over reading opponents because you have to read and learn your opponent to understand what changes you have to make for yourself in order to adapt. If you want to watch that, go ahead. If not, whatever. This video is just going to focus on reading opponents, so let's just get into it. Keep in mind, these tips are mostly observational things and just things for your mental game. So with that out of the way, the first thing I want to talk about is understanding your opponent's playstyle. Whenever I'm reading my opponent, I always start by figuring out what their general playstyle or goal is, because it's kind of like their foundation for things to expect. So, how do you figure out their playstyle / goal? Well, if you've been out here in these streets for a while, then you probably already know. If you don't, well, now you will. You have to look at the signs they give out. For example, if they're just ramp rushing you, they're probably W keying aggressive players. Their goal? They want to kill you and get elimination points. If they're doing everything to avoid a fight with you, they're probably either playing for endgame, passive, or they might be in a shambles situation, just trying to hold out. The goal? Survive at all costs or get placement points. There's other playstyles, but the idea is to look for the obvious signs or indications throughout and before your fights. As you gain more experience and fight more people, the quicker you'll be able to catch on to your opponent's intentions. Even if you don't have the time to fight a lot of people, you can always watch VODs, streams, and YouTube videos and see the different kinds of players and notice their tendencies and overall decision-making pattern. Aggressive players think a certain way, passive players think a certain way, and once you know the indications and understand their current playstyle, it'll be much easier for you to read their decisions from there. The next tip is to know your opponent's options. Now that you've made a prediction on what their goal is, now you have to think about how they're going to accomplish it. For example, let's say somebody's W keying you. In most of my situations, I always box up when I'm getting pushed, and I force a box fight. In this specific example, they have different options to try and push my box. They can pickaxe my walls, use a heavy sniper, SMG spray, do the RPG shotgun combo. Are they even going for a wall replace, or are they just trying to get inside my box? You know, like, what's their approach? These are all possibilities, and even when they choose one, you can't always assume that that's the only method that they'll try. That being said, you have to stay open-minded to the fact that they might switch up their game plan at any moment. As you observe your opponent, you take note of their tendencies and what they're doing with their options, and figure out how to counter the options that they're going for. Also, make sure that even when they've shown their cards and you've learned your opponent, that you don't be overconfident and stay open-minded. In a battle royale, I feel like you have to expect the unexpected, and you don't want to die to a random Hail Mary play to somebody you thought you had figured out. At that point, you might as well be every anime villain of all time. Finally, my last tip is to understand the cause and effect of any variables that might impact what your opponent will do. I call it a variable because the actions vary and they each have their own effect. For example, I'm sure we've all experienced this, but if you get lasered or cracked, you'll most likely be pushed aggressively and they're not going to stop until you're dead. So you prepare for that. If you're holding a wall and it gets replaced on the first try, you'll most likely be dealing with a low ping player who has confidence taking walls and establishing piece control. So you prepare for that. If you do anything that shows panic, like spam building or messing up edits, a good player will notice and use it as a confidence boost, and they might start playing a little bit more aggressive. So at that point, you have to be self-aware and prepare for that. These little variables don't always occur, but they happen often enough where it's important to understand why your opponent is playing the way they're playing and understanding the adjustments they might make because of the variables in the situation. Once again, keep in mind all these tips are like mental food for thought kind of tips that I figured anybody could implement and understand. So I really do hope they helped, or at least provided some perspective. And before I go, I do have a quick question for those of you who care. Besides the educational content I've been making, are there any other kinds of videos you'd be interested in seeing from me? It's a genuine question because I'm about to start summer classes and I'm trying to figure out some ideas for potentially more uploads instead of just doing one per week. Other than that, as always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.